Iran's stark warning that it will target U.S. troops and Israel if the United States strikes Iran in response to the ongoing protests represents a significant escalation of tensions in an already volatile region. This statement from Iran's parliament speaker should not be dismissed as mere rhetoric. It reflects a genuine assessment of the potential consequences of external intervention and underscores the seriousness with which the Iranian regime views the current unrest. To fully understand the implications of this warning, it is crucial to analyze the historical context of US-Iran relations, the nature of the protests themselves, and the potential ramifications of any military action. The current protests are not occurring in a vacuum. They are rooted in decades of economic hardship, social restrictions, and a lack of political freedom under the Islamic Republic. While sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini, a young woman who died in police custody after being arrested for allegedly violating the country's dress code, the demonstrations have quickly morphed into a broader challenge to the legitimacy of the theocratic regime. The protests are fueled by widespread discontent among various segments of Iranian society, including women, youth, and marginalized communities who feel disenfranchised and suffocated by the government's policies. The use of social media and encrypted communication channels has allowed protesters to organize and coordinate their actions, making it more difficult for the government to suppress the unrest. The government's response, characterized by heavy-handed tactics, arrests, and internet shutdowns, has only served to further inflame public anger. The history of US-Iran relations is fraught with distrust and animosity. The 1953 CIA-backed coup that overthrew the democratically elected government of Prime Minister Mohammad Mosaddegh remains a deep-seated source of resentment for many Iranians. The 1979 Islamic Revolution, which ousted the US-backed Shah, further strained relations, leading to decades of confrontation and proxy conflicts. The US has maintained economic sanctions on Iran for years, citing concerns about its nuclear program and support for terrorist groups. These sanctions have crippled the Iranian economy and exacerbated the economic hardships faced by ordinary Iranians, contributing to the current unrest. The Trump administration's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and the reimposition of sanctions further heightened tensions. The context of this warning is crucial. Iran perceives the US as actively seeking to destabilize the regime through various means, including support for opposition groups and the imposition of crippling sanctions. The speaker's warning is a clear signal to the US that any military intervention will be met with a swift and forceful response. By threatening to target US troops and Israel, Iran is raising the stakes and attempting to deter the US from taking military action. Israel, a staunch US ally and a longtime adversary of Iran, is particularly vulnerable to Iranian retaliation, given its proximity to Iran and its history of military confrontations with Iranian-backed groups in the region. The potential consequences of a US military strike on Iran are far-reaching and could destabilize the entire region. A military intervention could trigger a wider conflict involving other regional actors, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and various Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. It could also lead to a surge in terrorist attacks against US interests around the world. Moreover, a military strike would likely embolden hardliners within the Iranian regime and undermine any prospects for political reform. The speaker's warning is designed to deter the US from military intervention by making the potential costs of such action too high. It highlights Iran's willingness to escalate the conflict and its ability to inflict significant damage on US interests and allies. However, the warning also reflects the regime's growing anxiety about the stability of its rule in the face of persistent protests. The Iranian leadership recognizes that external intervention could provide a pretext for the regime to crack down even harder on dissent and consolidate its power. In conclusion, Iran's warning that it will target US troops and Israel if the US strikes over the protests is a serious escalation that demands careful consideration. It underscores the complexities of the situation in Iran and the potential dangers of external intervention. While the US has a legitimate interest in promoting human rights and democracy, military action is unlikely to achieve these goals and could have disastrous consequences. A more effective approach would involve diplomatic pressure, targeted sanctions against human rights abusers, and support for Iranian civil society. Ultimately, the future of Iran rests in the hands of the Iranian people, and any external intervention should be carefully considered to avoid unintended consequences that could further destabilize the region. The speaker's message should be taken as an intention and a capability, escalating the threat to regional and global stability.